Today I'm removing the rear door speaker from a 2021 Nissan Kicks. I feel like I'm becoming an expert on this. I do have the front door speaker and the radio or control center removal as well on the website. See our website, carstereoremoval.com. But this is very similar to the front door panel as well, except for missing that little panel that comes up on the front edge of the door panel. So we're going to start again. We're going to need tools, a pry tool, a 20 Torx, and a 10 millimeter socket. 10 millimeter socket. We're going to start with our flathead screwdriver and go to the hand opening and pry this small cover up at the bottom. Remove the cover and set it to the side before we lose it. And this is going to give access to our 20 Torx, and we're going to remove this screw from this opening. Next, we're going to go back to the small flathead screwdriver. We're going to pull out on the door handle. We're going to place our small flathead screwdriver into the panel that's in the back of this opening and pry against the door lock. And this panel will hinge out, and as it hinges out, you can remove it. Now, in order to put this back in, there's a little hook on the front, so the hook would go in first, and you would snap the panel back into place. This is going to give access to our 10 millimeter bolt here in the opening. And we're going to remove this screw. Again, if you need help with the front speakers or speaker phasing deals with sometimes hooking up aftermarket speakers and you realize there's no bass in the system and you lose the bass. That all deals with hooking up the speakers. Now we've removed this screw and we've removed the screw in the handhole, so we're going to take our pry tool and go at the front edge of the panel. We're going to remove this panel that's in the door here that houses the opening and the window switch, and we're going to pry along the edge while pulling up at the front. These clips release with pry pressure, just like that. And once this comes forward, it's going to give access to a white connector. This connector has a little trigger at the center of it that we're going to push down. It's a white trigger. You push this down, this releases the lock on this switch, and we should be able to wiggle this loose. Now, two things: when you go to put the door panel back on, be sure you pull this plug back up so that it doesn't get stuck behind the door and behind the door panel and against the door. But this connector is keyed. It only fits back into this opening in one position, so there's no problem with worrying about which way this connector goes. Now, with this panel removed, it gives access to a 10 millimeter Phillips bolt. You can use your Phillips screwdriver or your 10 millimeter socket. And we're going to remove this screw from the door panel. That'll free up most of the securing screws through the center of the door panel. And we're going to move back to our flathead screwdriver again. Out here on the very end of the panel is a clip. This clip has 4 notches around it, so we're going to go between any 2 of the notches and pry the center tab of this up. Once it starts, you can get your fingernails in behind it, pull it up. It'll snap up about 1/4 of an inch, and then you'll be able to remove this clip. Now, in order to put this clip back into the door, it has to be in the unsecured position, which is the up position. You will push it back into the opening, push the base in. Once it gets into place, you'll push the center back in to lock it in place. This is an easy clip to remove. Now, we've freed up all the clips on the door panel. We're going to come back to our pry tool. And I'm going to start down at the bottom. What we're going to do is remove all the clips. The clips all go down around the edges of the panel, and then the top sits in the door's windowsill here. So we're going to start prying at the bottom. I'm going to place my knee against the door so that the door doesn't come towards me, but the panel does as I pry. And I'm going to pull on it at the same time. It always sounds ugly, but that's just the sound of the clips releasing. Now we're going to pull this panel forward. You can see that I pulled the bottom of the panel away from the door. This is going to allow all the clips to pass when I push the panel up out of the door sill. There we go. That'll release it and pull it back. Now on the back of this panel there are 2 cables that secure the door lock and the door handle. And we're going to start with the upper cable. We're going to grasp this cable and come out of a pinch fitting that it's in and release. We're going to turn it around so that it releases the end of the cable and lift it up. The end of the cable will release, and to put this back in, you put it into the opening, slide it around, come back to the notches, and clip it back into place. Now this is going to work for both cables. The good news is both these cables, although they look the same, the ends are different. We're going to pull up the clip on the lower cable, bring the cable around to pass it up through the opening. This one has a ball on the end, so we'll put that back. Now we're going to remove the door panel. Check the door panel. Make sure all the clips removed with the door panel. These are the white clips. Sometimes you have to remove one from the door to place it back in, but they clip or slide right into place. Now this is going to give access to the speaker. I've already rolled the window down so we can check for depth to see if that's a concern when it comes to aftermarket speakers once we get the speaker out. But there's also a trigger on the side of this connector. We're going to push that trigger down, or a lock. We're going to push the lock down, release the trigger, and remove. Again, this is keyed, so it only goes back one position if you're replacing with a factory speaker. We're going to come back with our 10mm socket, remove 3 screws that secure the speaker to the door. There are guides or pins on the back of the speaker usually, so that you get it in the right position when putting the factory one back in, so it mates up to the connector. Now we've removed these 3 screws, and we're going to pull the speaker off the door here and release it. Now, putting my hand in here, I can feel the window way up at the top here, so I don't think there's real concern about the depth of the speaker that we put in there, although you can see this one only goes depth of maybe 1.5 inches, 2 inches into the door. There is a little metal bar back here, so that would be a concern. If you may need a spacer, or if the speaker's bad, I've taken clips to these and cut the guts out of it and used this ring as a spacer. There is an aftermarket wire harness that deals with hooking up to this. That will give you your plus and minus. That also deals a lot with speaker phasing, losing your bass. If you think you put in aftermarket speakers and you wonder what happened to the bass, usually one of the speakers is out of phase. Hope this video has been helpful. Please subscribe. See our front speaker removal and control head removal. Thank you for watching.